Welcome back to Hopeful Moments 1. Fire. Today, we have two incredibly dramatic stories that will leave you speechless. From the funny yet awkward situation where a guy decides to leave his girlfriend in the middle of a concert, to a merciless roast directed at a mom who loves to complain, these stories will keep you glued to the screen. Let's dive into today's hot topics. Leaving your girlfriend at a concert. Did I make the wrong decision? When you spend a significant amount of money to please your girlfriend, but end up being labeled as the bad guy just for following her wishes. Who's right, and who's wrong? Did I make a mistake roasting my sister-in-law for constantly complaining about parenting? When you keep hearing someone whine about their issues, but every time you offer a solution, they refuse it, should you speak up? Are you ready to explore these awkward situations? Let's go! Story 1. Leaving your girlfriend at the concert. Did I make the wrong decision? Have you ever found yourself trying your best to make your partner happy, only to end up becoming the villain in your own story? You think you're doing what's best for the one you love, but instead of appreciation, you're viewed as the bad guy? If you've never experienced this, get ready, because today's story will make you reflect. Can being too nice ever backfire? Our main character, let's call him OP, is a guy who would do anything for his girlfriend. Knowing that she's a huge Taylor Swift fan, OP didn't hesitate to spend a significant amount of money on VIP tickets for her to attend the concert, an event she'd been waiting for as if it were winning the lottery. The catch? OP wasn't a Taylor Swift fan himself, but for the sake of his girlfriend's happiness, he decided to dive into the sea of enthusiastic fans, even though he knew it wouldn't be an ideal experience for him. OP probably thought he'd be recognized as the perfect boyfriend, someone who's willing to do anything to make his partner happy. But life isn't always a fairy tale, and it seems OP didn't anticipate one thing: sometimes, your sacrifice isn't appreciated. Instead of receiving gratitude, OP was left with a bitter conclusion, even worse than the lyrics of All Too Well. So what happened? Why did a well-intentioned act turn OP into the villain in his girlfriend's eyes? And more importantly, does this story serve as a cautionary tale that sometimes, being overly kind can turn into a double-edged sword? Let's dive deeper into this situation to see if OP made a mistake, or if he was just following his girlfriend's wishes more thoroughly than she had expected. Not everyone is a Taylor Swift fan, and OP, the main character of this story, was no exception. He wasn't a Swiftie, nor was he fond of crowded places or loud concerts. But there was one thing OP was sure of: he loved his girlfriend. And out of that love, he decided to do something many would consider very romantic: spend money on VIP concert tickets for Taylor Swift, just so she could have an unforgettable experience. This wasn't a small amount of money. Anyone who's tried to get Taylor Swift concert tickets knows that securing a VIP ticket requires not just money, but also patience, luck, and speed like a hacker. But OP managed to do it. And he did it not because he liked Taylor Swift, but simply because he wanted to see his girlfriend happy. A selfless decision? Absolutely. A smart decision? Let's wait and see how it plays out. From many perspectives, OP was doing exactly what any ideal boyfriend would do, putting his girlfriend's happiness above his own interests. He didn't like concerts, didn't enjoy the bustling crowds, but he was still willing to step into an environment he wasn't comfortable with, just to see his girlfriend happy. At some level, this could be seen as a beautiful form of love, sacrifice without expecting anything in return. But the issue here is, love can't always be based on one-sided sacrifice. A lasting relationship needs mutual understanding, sharing, and respect. And this is when OP's story starts to take an unexpected turn. From the beginning, OP had been honest with his girlfriend about his limitations. He wasn't a fan of crowds and loud environments; they made him feel suffocated. He made this clear to her. "I'm not comfortable with crowded, noisy places." He didn't hide the truth, didn't pretend to be excited about the concert just to please his girlfriend. He had warned her in advance about what could happen. But OP's girlfriend had a sweet persuasion method, the kind of persuasion that only someone deeply in love can use. She made him believe that his presence would make everything more special. "Only if you're with me, it will be fun." This was the moment OP fell into a trap that wasn't necessarily set on purpose but had a surprisingly strong effect. Because of love, he pushed aside his own discomfort. He thought that as long as she was there, everything would be fine. But was everything really fine? And so, the fateful concert night unfolded. The stadium was packed with people. The music blared, the lights flashed brightly, and thousands of fans screamed excitedly. In that thrilling atmosphere, OP's girlfriend immediately immersed herself in the crowd, forgetting that there was someone who had sacrificed to be there with her. As for OP, he felt like he was pushed to the edge of a world he didn't belong to. The crowd suffocated him, and the shouting made his head spin. Once a man willing to sacrifice for love, he suddenly found himself an outsider in his own story. And this was just the beginning of the tragedy. From model boyfriend to Instagram story background, the moment the stage lights exploded, something magical, or disastrous, happened. OP's girlfriend immediately transformed. From a sweet girlfriend, she became a full-time Swiftie, with such explosive energy that even Elon Musk would be curious about what kind of fuel she was running on. She danced, screamed, shouted Taylor's name, her eyes gleaming like she had just won the lottery, passionately singing along to every word. But there was one thing she didn't do. She didn't remember that her boyfriend was standing right next to her. Amid the sea of excited fans, OP stood there, silently, like a hanger in a closet, useless, forgotten, but still present to complete the scene. He didn't expect her to hold his hand the whole time or constantly check on him, but at least a glance, a simple question like "Are you okay?" would have made him feel important. But no. She was busy, very busy. She was busy taking selfies, recording TikToks, texting friends, and live streaming the entire concert. If anyone had just looked at her phone, they would have thought she was at a private event with Taylor Swift. As for OP, he was no longer her boyfriend. He was just a blurry detail in the background of an Instagram story, an anonymous figure among the thousands of fans. A few hours passed, and OP no longer felt like he was at a concert. He felt like an alien who had crashed into a global Swiftie convention, lost in a world he didn't belong to. After enduring long enough, he decided to try something, gently expressing his desire to leave early, hoping for some sympathy. Just a little bit. But, no. His girlfriend not only didn't sympathize but even mocked him as if he had said the most ridiculous thing. Then, she uttered a line OP would never forget. "You're ruining my experience. If you don't like it, just leave." That sentence hit him like a crushing blow. There was no comfort, no apology, no effort to make him stay. Just a blunt, cold goodbye. And that was when OP realized a painful truth: he wasn't an important part of that moment. He was just an alien in her space, an obstacle interrupting her fun. So, he decided to leave for real. But what he didn't know was that the story would take an even more dramatic turn the next day. OP's liberation, a quiet exit mic drop. And so, he left. No heated argument, no dramatic scenes like in Hollywood movies. After hours of standing still among the enthusiastic crowd, OP suddenly decided to free himself in a way no one expected. He didn't yell, he didn't sigh in exhaustion. He simply did what he felt was right, took out his phone and sent a simple message. With calm poise, OP sent his girlfriend a text. "I'll head back to the hotel, enjoy the concert. Love you." No lengthy explanations. No complaints or whining. Just a simple message that showed responsibility and respect, but also made it clear that he was exhausted from her lack of attention. The short text conveyed all his emotions: disappointment, determination, and, most importantly, a resolution to leave without causing a scene. And so, OP walked out of the Taylor Swift arena, not as a loser, but as a hero who had completed an impossible mission. He left in a world full of cheers and music, but in his heart, silence was freedom. This exit wasn't loud or showy. It didn't need applause from the crowd or validation from anyone. OP had freed himself from a relationship where he no longer felt like an important part. He didn't need to wait for his girlfriend to change. He chose to step out of the endless cycle of neglect and forgetfulness. With this action, OP not only freed himself from the feeling of abandonment but also left his girlfriend with a question: will she realize how her lack of care pushed him away? This question wasn't voiced, but it was sent with every step he took away from the concert venue. No chaos, no reprimands, no arguments. It was a dignified exit, leaving the other person to reflect on their actions and shortcomings. Freedom. A perfect liberation freedom. That was the wonderful feeling when OP finally stepped out of the suffocating space he had tried to endure all evening. No more deafening screams from the excited crowd, no more blinding stage lights that seemed to burn his retinas, and no more being treated like a living tripod, just standing still for his girlfriend to record videos and take photos. He was no longer an accessory in the concert. He had escaped the chaotic cycle of the event and his girlfriend's indifference. With the feeling of having just survived a grueling battle, OP happily called a taxi, not because he wanted to run away, but because he finally felt like he could take control of his own life. No one was demanding that he smile when he didn't want to, no one was forcing him to endure things he disliked. He tossed his phone aside, not out of disrespect, but because it was time to focus on himself. His body relaxed, and as soon as his back hit the bed, he felt like for the first time in his life, he knew what inner peace was. While everything around him continued with the excitement of the concert, OP drifted into a deep sleep, a sleep that even Taylor Swift herself might have exclaimed, so real, so peaceful. At this moment, he was not the background for photos, not the forgotten fan, but just himself, someone finding peace within. He smiled, imagining his girlfriend would shout out Taylor Swift's lyrics, "'Cause darling, I'm a nightmare dressed like a daydream," when she discovered he had vanished into the night. But OP didn't have to worry about that. For him, this freedom and stillness were more important than anything else. His night was a quiet one, without noise, exhaustion, or being pushed aside. He was simply himself. However, all of OP's peace lasted only for one night. The next morning, the storm hit. OP's girlfriend, discovering he had left, returned in a fury that could rival the Eras tour. She stormed into the room like a level 5 tornado, her eyes wide, phone in hand. This wasn't just ordinary anger. It was the eruption of emotions that had been building up, emotions from someone unwilling to acknowledge that they had accidentally made the other feel abandoned and unimportant. Poor OP, he hadn't even had time to wake up, not prepared for the fury that was about to strike. He hadn't even rubbed his eyes, hadn't realized that everything from now on would never be the same. The storm hit, and OP had to face what he had tried to avoid all night. "You left me alone at the concert. I had to face thousands of strangers alone." These words hit OP like a thunderstrike, still in shock, not knowing how to react. Less than a minute later, his phone began buzzing non-stop, a warning he couldn't ignore. He opened it, and suddenly the world seemed to collapse beneath him. While he was still unsure of what was happening, OP witnessed something he never expected. His girlfriend, as soon as he left, posted something on social media that left him stunned. She wrote, "Left alone at the concert, this is so bad, sad face. No one should have to go through this. Hashtag feeling abandoned, hashtag sad, hashtag worst night ever." At that moment, the words OP saw felt like a knife to his heart. The truth no longer mattered. What mattered now were her emotions and what she posted on social media, which had sparked everything. Within hours of the post, OP became the biggest villain in the Swiftie fandom. Taylor Swift fans on social media quickly divided into two camps, one supporting his girlfriend and the other condemning his actions. The entire social media world seemed to turn into an anti-OP movement, with thousands of comments pouring in like a raging storm. "Oh my God! What kind of boyfriend leaves his girlfriend in a crowd like that? Too toxic. Instead of staying to support his girlfriend, he left to sleep? Need a boyfriend who respects his girlfriend's interests." OP's feelings at this point were indescribable. He sat there, utterly confused, asking himself, wait, didn't she tell me to leave? He couldn't understand how a situation where he had tried his best to avoid conflict could turn into a storm of backlash. The small details, like him not wanting to participate in a noisy concert and informing her beforehand, were completely ignored in her story. Now, the truth didn't matter anymore. The only thing social media cared about were the emotions of the person posting the status and her tragic story of being left behind. He became the villain just because of a brief status update, but one that had an incredibly powerful impact. The critical comments rained down on him, making him feel like the worst person in the world. There's a painful truth in this story that OP couldn't change. On social media, the emotions of the poster always win, not the objective truth. Everything OP did, no matter how sincere his efforts were to make his girlfriend happy, was overshadowed by her negative emotions. He couldn't fathom how an action he thought was reasonable could be twisted into a display of neglect and selfishness. This feeling became even more painful when OP realized that he had become the national sinner, a villain in his own love story, just because he made a decision that went against his girlfriend's wishes during a loud music concert. Meanwhile, his girlfriend continued to enjoy the sympathy of the online community, drawing attention and pity as if she were the only victim in this entire story. From here, OP realized that sometimes sacrifice and truth are not always viewed fairly, and social media has become a platform where personal emotions and private stories can be twisted to serve the interests of those sharing them. This is not just a story about love but also a lesson on how emotions can be manipulated and exaggerated in modern society, where every action can become a topic of debate, and where people can easily become victims or villains with just one social media post. OP might have acted responsibly and had legitimate reasons for leaving, but his story was distorted by the power of emotions and the ease of quick judgments. This raises the question, in a world full of external influences, can we truly understand and respect each other, or can each person only seek empathy and recognition from the online community? So, the story of the guy who left his girlfriend at the Taylor Swift concert quickly became a hot topic on social media, attracting attention no less than an international sports final. This drama exploded just like the Eras Tour, with two opposing sides fiercely debating OP's actions. Each side had their own reasoning, and no one was willing to back down, making the story even more intense. The critics of OP did not hesitate to criticize him for being irresponsible and showing a lack of care for his girlfriend during such a special event. The painful and critical comments directed at OP were like arrows aimed at him. What kind of boyfriend is this? He should have stayed by her side, shouting, "You belong with me." Who will hold the phone to record for her? Who will cheer with her? Who will pretend to be moved when Taylor sings the 10-minute version of All Too Well? Break up, girl. You deserve a true Swiftie boyfriend instead. These criticisms were like an explosion, not only attacking OP but also questioning the idea of sacrifice in love. In their eyes, OP not only lacked care but also failed to understand the importance of an event like a Taylor Swift concert to his girlfriend. They believed that in love, sacrifice and care should always go hand in hand, and OP's departure was an act of irresponsibility that no one could forgive. They didn't hesitate to suggest that the girlfriend should break up and choose a true Swiftie boyfriend who would respect her interests. However, not everyone shared the same view as the critics. A different group of people, OP's supporters, immediately presented strong counterarguments. Wait, she told him to leave, right? Why is she acting like the victim now? A man who gets dragged to a concert he doesn't like and still sacrifices his time is already making a huge sacrifice. All he did was leave to get some rest, not go on a 2-week trip. Why is everyone making a big deal out of it? These people believe that OP did nothing wrong. He had prepared in advance and clearly communicated that he didn't like crowded places, so he had no reason to endure an event that didn't suit him just because his girlfriend wanted to. They felt that OP's decision to leave was a personal one and should not be labeled as disrespectful. For them, there are limits to sacrifice, and leaving early to get some rest was not something that should be condemned as a bad action. This group strongly defended OP, arguing that his girlfriend had not respected his sacrifice and failed to understand personal boundaries. They felt that the comments condemning OP were excessive and unfair, as everyone has their limits and the right to choose activities they feel comfortable with. While social media became a fierce battleground, with two sides debating as if it were a Champions League final. OP and his girlfriend continued to nurse their private pain. Their real-life argument was just as tense, with shouting and mutual criticism, neither willing to back down. Like a bridge in Taylor Swift's song The Way I Loved You, emotions surged and became uncontrollable. Both felt hurt, and instead of understanding each other, they only pushed each other further apart. In the end, while the argument continued with no resolution, they made the heartbreaking decision to break up. A relationship that both thought would last forever ended in pain and irreparable differences. Unheard emotions, unappreciated sacrifices, and this relationship couldn't survive the irreconcilable differences. OP's and his girlfriend's story is not only a typical example of different perceptions of love but also a warning about the conflicts that can arise in relationships when personal emotions and rationality are not in harmony. When each person fails to understand and appreciate the sacrifices of the other, the result can be a heartbreaking end, just like one of Taylor Swift's sad ballads. But don't feel too sorry for OP's girlfriend, because not long after, she turned the situation around with a stunning twist. Less than a week after the breakup, she quickly reappeared with a new boyfriend. And what's even more surprising? He is a hardcore Taylor Swift fan. This twist was enough to leave OP stunned, even more so than the first time he heard the original version of All Too Well. Her latest photos were immediately updated on Instagram, showing her and her new boyfriend posing together, hands forming a heart, with a romantic caption. "Finally found someone who gets me #Swiftie couple." Her image with her new boyfriend wasn't just a symbol of a new love, it was a perfect proof of her transformation. She had found someone who truly understood her and shared her passion for Taylor Swift, a true Swiftie ready to immerse in every melody and share every moment with her. This transformation didn't just surprise OP, it shattered all the doubts he had about his own actions. It was such a disorienting moment that, as he sat staring blankly at her latest post, he couldn't help but wonder what he had lost. Had he lost love, a relationship, or simply a misunderstanding in love? At this moment, OP could only sit in a daze, staring at her post on social media, sighing, and trying to understand what went wrong in his relationship. Was OP wrong to leave the concert? Or was he simply following his girlfriend's request, like a well-behaved man obediently complying with his partner's wishes? This story raises an important question: was the girlfriend right? Yes. OP was indeed a thoughtless boyfriend who took her to the concert and left halfway. It's like preparing a lavish meal and then throwing the guest out before the main course is served. The disappointment and feeling of abandonment are inevitable. No. The girlfriend clearly said, "If you don't like it, just leave." So OP was just following her request. It's like telling a delivery person to leave food at the door and then complaining when it's not brought into the kitchen. Is that really reasonable? So, if you were OP in this situation, what would you choose? Stay at the concert, try to pretend to enjoy the show, singing along to Taylor Swift's familiar lyrics, while secretly wanting to go home and sleep. B. Disappear into the crowd, like a ninja, call a taxi back to the hotel, and enjoy a sweet nap without enduring the glaring lights. C. Negotiate peace, convince your girlfriend that love should not come with sleepless nights and ringing ears, and instead, you both can enjoy the evening with mutual understanding and respect. No matter what choice you make, this question will definitely make you rethink how to handle relationships and the expectations that each side places on each other. Can you sacrifice for love without feeling forgotten? Or can you take care of yourself without feeling like you're disrespecting your partner? With this situation, the final question we want you to ask yourself is, if you were in OP's shoes, what would you choose? Leave a comment and let us know if you're on the stay and endure team or the disappear and sleep team. This debate is sure to bring many interesting and intense perspectives. And so, as the story slowly winds down, we can see a big lesson from this tale. Sometimes, in love, misunderstandings and a lack of mutual understanding can cause everything to fall apart. But did OP really make a mistake by just following his girlfriend's request, or was he simply in a relationship where respect and understanding were no longer present? Story 2, was I wrong to tease my sister-in-law for constantly complaining about taking care of the baby? Introduction. have you ever met someone who constantly complains about life's difficulties, yet refuses all help and doesn't make any changes to improve the situation? This can be frustrating for those around them, especially when they genuinely want to help but are shut down. Today, let's dive into a family story filled with tension and arguments, when OP, the author, decided to tease her sister-in-law, who repeatedly complained about the challenges of raising her child but refused to do anything to resolve the issue. This story raises an interesting question: when someone constantly complains but refuses to change, do others have the right to criticize them openly? Was OP wrong for reacting with sarcasm to express her frustration, or was it the only way for her sister-in-law to recognize the problem? Can blunt words help the person involved to wake up, or will it only escalate the family conflict? Let's delve deeper into this story to see who is right, who is wrong, and whether OP's bluntness was a wise choice. Background: OP has a married older brother, and they share a child together. However, since the baby was born, the atmosphere in the family has become more tense, as the sister-in-law constantly complains about the difficulties of being a mother. She always expresses her exhaustion and burnout due to new responsibilities. She says that caring for her baby takes up all her time, leaving no moments for herself. What's worse, she feels lonely in this journey and frequently emphasizes that no one supports her, whether it's her husband, family, or friends. These complaints have not been occasional but have become a recurring theme in their conversations, gradually provoking mixed reactions from those around her. But the question is the sister-in-law really being neglected, or is the issue that she refuses help? Is her constant complaining a genuine cry for help, or simply a habit of complaining without wanting to change? This is what ultimately led to OP's frustration, setting the stage for the ensuing conflict. The story unfolds. Initially, OP completely sympathized with her sister-in-law. Everyone knows that motherhood is a challenging job, especially in the early years of a child's life. Taking care of a baby doesn't just consume a lot of time, but it also wears down a mother's physical and emotional strength. Sleepless nights, unexplained crying fits from the baby, and the pressure to be perfect can leave anyone feeling drained. Therefore, when OP heard her sister-in-law complain about being tired, she could fully understand the difficulties she was facing. However, the real issue lies in how the sister-in-law was handling the situation. Despite constantly complaining that she was exhausted, she flat out rejected any help from others, whether it was her husband, family, or friends. Many offers of assistance were made, but all were rejected with very subjective reasons. OP's brother suggested hiring a nanny. The sister-in-law immediately declined, saying, "I can't trust strangers to care for my child." Her in-laws offered to babysit for a few days to give her a break. She turned them down, saying, "Grandparents will spoil the baby and ruin them." Friends recommended sending the baby to daycare for a few hours each day to reduce the pressure. She refused, citing, "I don't want to be away from my baby, they're too young." OP even offered to babysit for one evening so her sister-in-law could relax, but she rejected it, insisting, "No one can take care of the baby like its mother." In summary, despite having many options to reduce the pressure, the sister-in-law chose to put herself in a difficult situation and then complain to everyone about how hard it was. This caused OP to lose patience because if the sister-in-law truly wanted to solve the problem, she had plenty of ways to do so. But instead of seeking solutions, she continued to complain without making any changes. And this led to an escalating conflict between OP and her sister-in-law. The tipping point: after a long period of listening to her sister-in-law's endless complaints, OP lost her patience. At first, she tried to remain sympathetic, listened, and even tried to offer help. But when she realized that no matter how many suggestions or offers of help were given, her sister-in-law kept refusing and complaining like it was a habit, OP began to feel frustrated. The situation reached its peak one family dinner. The family was gathered together, and the atmosphere was initially cheerful. But then, as OP had predicted, her sister-in-law began lamenting about how hard it was to care for the baby, how she had no time for herself, and how no one understood her struggles. This time, OP couldn't hold back any longer. She decided to speak her mind, without any hesitation. At the dinner table, she made a sharp remark, "Well, I thought you liked being miserable." Because it seems like every solution offered, you refuse it. So you must really enjoy being tired. The atmosphere immediately froze. The entire table went silent, so much so that you could hear the soft clinking of forks and knives on plates. The sister-in-law stared at OP in shock, her face pale with disbelief. She had never expected someone to speak so bluntly, especially in front of the entire family. A few tense seconds passed before OP's brother quickly tried to change the subject to ease the situation. But it was too late. The shock in the sister-in-law's eyes quickly turned to anger. Without saying another word, she stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly on the floor. Her voice trembled with anger as she declared that she was leaving immediately. OP's brother quickly stood up to follow and comfort his wife, but she had already left the table without looking back. OP, looking around the table, realized she had just caused a major upheaval in the family. But the question remained, was OP really wrong for speaking the truth? Or was that exactly what her sister-in-law needed to hear? Aftermath. After the tense dinner, the matter didn't stop there. Shortly after, OP received a call from her sister-in-law, and her voice was full of frustration. She bluntly told OP that she felt insulted by her words. According to her, OP had no right to judge or evaluate what she was going through because motherhood was an incredibly difficult journey that only those who had truly experienced it could understand. She emphasized that OP's sarcastic remark in front of the whole family not only hurt her but also made her feel isolated and misunderstood. However, from OP's perspective, she didn't feel she was wrong. She didn't deny that motherhood was tough, but if her sister-in-law had continually rejected all help, what good did complaining incessantly do? OP felt that her sister-in-law's exhaustion wasn't just about the pressures of raising a baby, but also about her own helpless attitude. If she really wanted to ease her burdens, she could have accepted the support from her family or sought solutions instead of just complaining. Family divided. After this incident, OP's family was divided into two camps with opposing views. Some people believed OP had been too blunt, even inconsiderate. They thought that motherhood was a highly stressful journey, and it was completely understandable that the sister-in-law was feeling exhausted. They felt that OP shouldn't have teased a mother who was struggling, especially during a family dinner that was supposed to maintain harmony. On the other hand, some family members sided with OP. They argued that the sister-in-law was genuinely making things harder for herself by refusing to change. They agreed that if she rejected every solution, complaining would be pointless, and OP's words might have been what she needed to hear to reflect on the situation. Now, OP and her sister-in-law still haven't spoken again. The tension remains, and OP is starting to question whether she should apologize to maintain family peace or stick to her stance because she believes she wasn't wrong. If she stays silent, will the situation eventually cool down, or will the rift between her and her sister-in-law grow larger? No matter what, OP realizes that sometimes the truth is not always easy to hear, and not everyone is ready to accept it. So, what do you think about this situation? Was OP really out of line for speaking her mind, or was it just a reasonable reaction to her sister-in-law's constant complaining? Some might argue that OP was too blunt, even harsh, when she spoke those sharp words in front of the entire family. Whether right or wrong, confronting someone who feels stuck with sarcasm might not be the best solution. Perhaps, instead of escalating the tension, OP could have chosen a softer approach to help her sister-in-law see the issue. However, others might side with OP. Clearly, her sister-in-law kept complaining about her struggles but stubbornly rejected all offers of help. This led those around her to gradually lose patience, as no matter how much they wanted to help, she would not accept it. If someone constantly complains but refuses to change, does that still deserve sympathy? This situation raises an important question: where's the line between necessary bluntness and lack of tact? When someone is in a difficult spot but refuses help, should we patiently listen, or should we bluntly point out the issue for them to recognize?